So I live in South Korea with my South Korean wife. We have decided to be child-free and have been incredibly happy with that decision for several years. My mother-in-law, however, never seems to understand this. Every few months my mother-in-law brings up the subject of a grandchild. She will ask my wife if she is pregnant, or if we have been trying, or when we will have a baby. She would constantly beg us, saying things like, "Please just have one baby, just one please. And I will take care of the baby for the first 2 years of its life, please please please." For the longest time we just kept telling her not now, just trying to get off the subject. But as the years go by she has been less willing to drop the subject and asks us far more frequently than before. So a few months back my wife finally told her that we don't plan on having any kids, so please stop asking. This however was not effective. So October 1st this year was Korean Thanksgiving, Chuseok, so we were obligated to go to my in-laws for the festivities. We both figured she was going to bring up the subject like she always does, but we didn't quite expect the twist she would throw in there this time. This time she told us that if we have a baby then she will buy us a car, any car we want, up to 26 million Korean won. Which is about $22,700 US or 19,200 euros. We both kind of laughed at it at first, didn't think she was completely serious about it, but she was. And so we basically had to tell her, "No, we are not having a baby. I don't care if you offer to buy me a Ferrari, we aren't having a baby." She finally gave up on that like of attack. But fast forward a few days later, she calls my wife and changes the offer. This time rather than buying us a car, she said she would just straight up give us the 26 million won in cash, in exchange for a baby of course. Again we had to tell her no. Now if someone were to offer me $26 million, we might be having a conversation, but no way is it worth giving up our child-free lives in exchange for something as fleeting as a vehicle. Has anyone else had anything similar like this happen with their family? TLDR, mother-in-law offered me 26 million, Korean won, to have a baby with her daughter. Long story short, my wife and I have been married for over 2 years and we've been trying to have a baby. Though her Asian parents are the more reasonable ones overall compared to mine, the mother-in-law has been getting on our case about having kids since day one of our marriage. I've also been unemployed for a little over a year until recently, but the new job doesn't begin for a few weeks. During the year when I was unemployed, I was under tremendous stress to network and interview for a new job while my wife was stressed due to having to support everyone while tolerating a somewhat toxic work environment. Several months ago, my mill was getting impatient that we still didn't have any kids, never mind the fact that I was unemployed. So she flew from China to visit us in the US and immediately blamed her daughter, giving her countless different Chinese medicines and herbs to help her conceive. When that didn't work, she asked her to see a doctor, and it turns out there was nothing wrong with her. Finally, I could bear to watch it anymore, so I broke the silence one day, "Mill," to my wife, "So, what's the deal with not having a baby?" Wife, silence, me, "We haven't been having says much." Mill, to me, why is that?" Me, "We're super stressed and rarely in the mood." Mill, "I see. Why don't you see a doctor?" So I went to see a psychiatrist since the sheer amount of stress I was under was killing me. Turns out, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. I also went to a fertility clinic and sure enough, I was diagnosed with infertility and they told us the only hope of ever having a baby would be to do IVF, which would cost $10,000, $20,000 and have only a 30% success rate each time, not to mention extreme suffering for my wife. My mill insisted that we do it. This was pretty much my breaking point, as I pondered the ridiculousness of the situation. Here I'm unemployed and can barely afford the cost of IVF with the meager savings I had left while my wife supported the family, and we're in for even more bills to be paid once the kid is born. And on top of that, the kid has a chance of inheriting Asperger's syndrome from me. I didn't have the heart to confront my mill over this since she's a very decent and polite person who would never even raise her voice at me compared to my own parents, at least on the surface. So I did my best to try to talk my way and buy some time with my mill, at least until I found full-time employment. When my mill found out I found a new job, she immediately started getting back on our case again about having kids. While the new job offer has cut some slack in my stress levels, they still have not returned to normal yet, and my mill harping on us about this isn't helping either. My wife and I both agree we really need a long and relaxing vacation before the prolonged stress we've had over the last year can be purged for good. But my mill expects us to resume trying for the baby immediately and that we can't waste even another day since we're both in our 30s. She doesn't seem to get that we're still rarely in the mood to conceive the baby due to the lingering stress, and we desperately need this vacation to recharge for a week or two. I married her only child. She underwent extensive IVF back when it was still very new in order to conceive my husband. She's doted on him constantly his whole life. Her only boy. Her only baby. Lately, my husband's cousins are starting to get pregnant or talk babies. One is just about to finish her residency as an ER surgeon. Baby is due in April, and she doesn't graduate until June. But according to my mill, oh no, she'll be able to finish on time. She loves her career but not as much as she'll love that little girl. She'll make the right sacrifices if she has to. Duck. Weird. Worse, Mill treats this cousin, her niece, as the golden child. All I've been hearing this week is how this cousin is going to raise a baby the green way, and make all her own clothes and diapers and allowing electronics in the house with the baby. The cousin is also refusing any help from family. No babysitting, no gifts of clothes or toys, etc. Which would seem nice and non-invasive if she weren't using it as a way to assert her maternal superiority. As if raising a baby is so easy that it can be done all on her own, finishing her residency and making everything by hand. Mill's other niece has severe health problems, mental and physical, and has been dating this guy for years who refuses to marry her until she can prove that she can bear his children. This girl has a medical condition that makes it very difficult for her to conceive, and very unlikely for her to survive if she does. Furthermore, she's on antipsychotics which she would have to stop taking if she were pregnant. But according to Mill, but she wants the baby more than anything. That's what it's all about, doing anything for your babies. She'll just do what she has to do. Duck. And here I am, married to her only son. Both of us hardcore child-free. Though, she won't accept that. She's already dropped hints of disaster with phrases like, "Luckily, you'll be able to conceive easily. I went through so much to conceive, husband, it will be nice for the grandbabies to come easier, and, husband, you need to start thinking of giving me grandkids." She makes it very clear that my uterus, by extension, belongs to her. And I feel, and my husband feels, that when we finally come out and explicitly tell her, she'll turn herself into the sufferer, which is something she does constantly. Husband thinks she'll be offended that I have a healthy uterus and refuse to use it, and how dare I do that to her by luring her only baby. She has a huge ego. Loves being the martyred matriarch. Duck. I hope this is coherent. I'm so drunk from today. I'm trying to numb myself. Today was just too much baby talk. I want to just tell her and get it over with. Husband is more resistant because he hates conflict. I say let it come, cause then we can separate for a while and I won't have to hear about all the ways she would raise my hypothetical children differently than the way she already knows I'm going to raise them. Surprise B. Not having any. My fiancé is an only child. We've been together for 6 years, and only recently got engaged. I started a 3-year trade apprenticeship last month, and he just started a new job as well. We're both going on 30, we have no money, no space left in our 1-bedroom apartment, and no plans to have children for the next few years. Although my mill doesn't seem to understand this. Here are some of the phrases she's said to use over the past 3 years or so, about her desire for us to have kids. It's 10 a.m., and you're still asleep? You can't sleep, and once you two start having babies you can't buy a 2-seater car. There's no space for a stroller in there. It's time you start thinking about kids, cause I want to be a CZ grandma. Don't roughhouse. I don't want either of you injured and not able to give me grandbabies. But if you move out of state, how will I visit my grandkids? She's talking to my fiancé, shouldn't have to work. You should get a job and support her so she can have kids. You want to get a dog? Dogs are not a replacement for kids, you know. You can't go spending money on all this electronic stuff when you have babies of your own. When are you going to give me grandbabies? Basically, this woman's sole purpose for living past the age of 45, is for grandkids. I don't even know if I want kids. It's not that I dislike kids. I'm just on the fence about having some. I am a strong, independent woman, working in a physical labor trade job, with 60 other men, on my job site. And I'm loving it. I have zero desire to quit, pop out some babies, and stay at home, watching Ellen, and the cooking channel, like she does. My fiancé and I have talked about my somewhat lacking desire to have kids. He wants them, but it's not as if he's going to leave me if I decide I don't want any. And yet, every time I go down to my in-laws' house, all I hear is you're getting to the end of your prime years, you know. Pretty soon you might not even be able to have kids. It's not my fault you chose to only have one child, and are now putting all 98 pounds of you, on my fiancé and I, because you want babies in your life. A small part of me wants to never have kids, just to spite her. Just a small part though. Thanks for letting me vent. Sincerely, super happy with my life, full-time female electrical technician's apprentice.